Recently, my poor niece's life was struck by a terrible, terrible tragedy. Her fairy wings broke. I know. Life is so tough when you're 5. She has asked me to fix them for her, and while my amateur sewing skills may not be able to make that happen, my crochet skills, on the other hand, could just be up for the challenge. The footage I intended to use in this section became corrupted, and I have neither the time nor the yarn to refilm it at the moment. So instead, please enjoy this very accurate recreation I made using the graphic design software of Champions. Here is me in my room, and here is my shelves on which I keep all my yarn. Amongst all the colours on those shelves is the 5 that I need: black, white, blue, purple and pink. I grab 1 skein of each of those down, and I'm going to bring them over to my crochet table and proceed to make the first wing. End scene. Thank you for watching my recreation. I've been sat here for the last 10-15 minutes scrolling through Pinterest, trying to decide what shape I want my niece's fairy wings to be. And it literally only just occurred to me that I don't have to do that because I already have a wing pattern I can use as a base. And it's been behind me this whole damn time. I made wings for my butterfly dragon, and I think they are a really good shape. Now, this pattern is obviously going to be too small to create fairy wings for a person, even a miniature person, but all I need to do is increase the size. I will be using a thicker weight yarn and a larger hook size anyway, but even that's probably not going to be enough to get me to the size that I want, so I can just adjust this pattern a bit and boom, fairy wings. Thanks but no thanks, Pinterest. I am all set, so no need to worry about that. I'm just going to make a mock-up using this wing pattern as a base. Simple. This is what happens almost every time I try to do a centre pull. Almost every time. There is a moth that has been flying around in here all day. I've been trying to catch it, but so far it has evaded me. So if you see a moth just fluttering around in the background, please ignore it. I've given up. The moth wins. But anyway, in some good news, I have finished the purple section of my fairy wing. As is my usual MO, I think I have made this much larger than I intended to. But even though that's probably the case, I'm going to check it against the fairy wings that I have anyway. Yep, just as I suspected, that is way too big. But that's not really a huge deal. My niece is going to love these regardless, I think. In fact, the bigger they are, the more she will probably like them. So what's a little bit of extra work for my hands if it makes my niece happy? So now that the purple section is done, I will continue on with the blue. Not today, but I will be continuing on with that. And it is in this last colour change section where we're going to start shaping the wing. So I'll be working on the larger top part first, and then I'll come back in later and finish off the bottom section. And then I just have to repeat this entire process all over again. Every bloody time. So I've shaped one wing. I haven't done any of the detailing yet. I'm going to leave that till last, but I've shaped it, and I may have made it a little bit too big. This happens so often to me. I'll start a project and I'll have a size sort of in mind, and then I'll just sail right on past it. To be fair, as I was crocheting it, I did get the sense that it was going to be quite large, but instead of frogging my work, I just thought, nah, bugger it, I'll stick with it. And that's what I did, and now I've ended up with a huge wing, so I've got no one to blame but myself. This is sort of probably a good size for me rather than my little niece, but let's be real here. 5-year-old's not going to care if she has a huge pair of fairy wings, so I think I'm in the clear. But anyway, now that I've crocheted my first wing, I'll have to crochet myself a second giant wing to match the first. When that's complete, I need to add the detailing, but I also need to add some wire so the wings will maintain their shape. And I'm not sure which one to do first. It might be more practical to make the detailing first and then sort of attach the wings, or it might be easier to attach the wings first and then add the detailing. I'm not quite sure, but I'll crochet the second wing first and then we can worry about that. That is a future problem. And I have finally done it. I have 2 fairy wings. This has taken me almost 4 months. Gone are the days when I could knock out a project like this in 1 or 2 days. Now I'm up to 1 or 2 months or more, but regardless, they are finally finished. And I like how the shape of them, even though it's too big to fit in the frame currently, I like how the shape of them has turned out. I'm not so keen on the color work. I would prefer if I make, well, I should say when I make this again, because to be honest, I kind of want a pair for myself. But when I make this again, rather than having a hard border between each of my colors, I would think I would rather crochet like a gradient, introduce each new color in slowly, just to soften the color change, make it more gradual. I think that would look a bit nicer. But that's a project for another day. I need to get these finished first. I really have two choices from here. I can add the details to the wings first and then kind of crochet them together with the wire frame that I plan to use. Or I could do the wire frame first and then add the details. I can really see pros and cons to doing it both ways. What I'm thinking though is I might do a bit of both. I'll start with the black wing details, and what I mean by that is if I grab out my butterfly dragon over here and just knock everything else to the floor while I'm at it. But you can see on this dragon I've added black sort of stripes to the wings. I don't know what they're called on actual butterflies. I will have to look that up. I will consult the Goog later, but I want to add those onto these wings. Here I used needle felting, but I think given the size of these wings, it's going to be a lot easier if I just surface crochet using slip stitches. That I think will be easier to do before I add the wire frame. I shall do that first, then I will add the wire frame, and then after the wire frame is complete, that will help my wings maintain their shape, and it's at that point that I will add the remaining details, which is just probably some spots. Again, similar to what I've done with my butterfly dragon here, though with the larger wings I want to go for a little bit more detail. So that's how I'm thinking I'll approach this one. Stripes, wireframe, spots. Hopefully this doesn't take me another 4 months. It shouldn't. It's not that big of a project, but having said that, I'm a little nervous about adding the wireframe. I've never done anything like this before, so I'm just going to have to wing it and see. Sorry about the terrible puns. No, you know what? I'm not sorry. I like terrible puns.
Yeah, so it's at this point I need to confess that I forgot my original plan of doing the black spots, then the wire, then the rest of the details, and I just went ahead and did all the details in one go. So let's just pretend that this is what I intended in the first place.
Alrighty, progress update. I have finished the details, and I know they're a little bit hard to see because they don't quite fit in the frame here, but I am really happy with how these have turned out so far. I've kept the details to a minimum, so I haven't done quite as many black lines as I was originally planning. Same thing with the white spots. The reason being, I can always add those later if I don't think this is enough. I just didn't want to overdo it at this stage. So for now, leaving it there. The next step is going to be the one I've been dreading most for this project, and that is adding the wire. I've never used wire in sort of this context before. What I want to do is lay, both my wings out on a flat surface, and then I want to crochet the wire to the wings all the way around the outside. I think it's going to be pretty straightforward. I'm just going to be using single crochet to attach the wire, but as I said, I've never done this before, so I'll be learning as I go during this process. Originally, I was just planning to reuse the wire from the broken fairy wings. Because I overshot a little bit and made these wings far larger than I intended, I don't think that plan is going to work anymore. I'm going to keep this wire for use in another project at some point in the future, but for the actual wire I'm going to be using for these wings, I'm just going to see what I can scrounge up in my dad's shed. So yes, that is what I will be attempting next. And unless I want to add any more details, the wings will be finished at that point. And I'm really looking forward to seeing these in action. I do think they may end up being a little bit big for my niece. I don't think she'll care about that, but I could theoretically make her another pair and I could potentially keep these for myself. But I'll worry more about scamming the 5-year-old out of her fairy wings later on. For now, I just want to get the wire into these things. And they're done. Hands down, one of my favorite projects to have ever worked on. I really, really like how they turned out. I am definitely going to make myself a pair at some point. Now, even though I do absolutely love them, that's not to say that I can't make some improvements. I think I mentioned at one point that I would like to do the colour as a gradient rather than having a solid stopping and starting point. So if I make my own wings, that is something I'm going to attempt to do more of a gradient. I do think I need to add more wire to give the wings a bit more structure, especially for wings of this size. As you can see, they're sort of flopping all over the place at the moment. I really need to add some wire somewhere in the middle. Perhaps I could even add that under the black detail lines. That just might give them a little bit more structure and stop them from flopping all over the place. And another thing I would like to change on my next attempt with these wings is the way they attach to your body. For this pair, I just added like an elastic harness because, you know, my niece is 5 and I thought that was just the best thing to do for her. But for me, I would like to have sort of an invisible attachment, and I have seen online people have made wings that sort of hook into the back of like a corset or something, and I think that's the way I would like to go as well. I'd like to have some sort of invisible attachment method, but it's just a matter of what can hold up the weight of the wings the best, because these are bloody heavy. They are surprisingly heavy. With both the amount of yarn I used, my shoulder does not bend that way, the amount of yarn I used plus the wire, they are quite heavy. But even so, even with those few minor flaws, I just love these. I'm kind of disappointed now that I have to give them to my niece, but I know she's going to absolutely adore them as well. And I'll have the chance to practice some like different detail designs and different attachment methods, because I am going to be making at least a second pair, because actually I've already started that, a second pair for the written pattern, which will be available on my Patreon when it's done. But as I said, I also want to make a pair for myself. What I'm going to do with a pair of giant fairy wings, I have no idea. But I want some nonetheless. Maybe I can just wear them when I'm hanging out here in front of my crochet background. Anyway, I have to take these off now because I made this elastic in my niece's size and it's extremely tight on me. So I need to take these off, and then after I do that, we'll come back and do... And today's featured creator on the hookup is Mummy of Willow, and she says, "I'm just a mama who loves to crochet in my free time." Short and sweet description there. So if you would like to check out all of Mummy of Willow's links, they will be down in the description. Also in the description is a link to a Google form if you would like to participate in the hookup for yourself. Thank you all very much for watching this video. I know it was kind of fragmented. A lot of my videos have been like that recently just because due to the limited amount of time I can crochet for, I just have to break my projects up into smaller sessions. Also, a few of my MP4 files did end up getting corrupted. It's just something that happens every now and then, so that didn't help. But anyway, we are done. We have finished the really cool fairy wings. As I said earlier, the written pattern will be available on my Patreon when it's finished. Should either be out now or it will be out in a couple of days. Thank you all very much for watching. A further thank you to my patrons for your amazing support. Consider subscribing if you haven't already. Like the video if you enjoyed it. Share it if you think it's worth sharing. And I will see you all in the next video.